when Michael Bay makes a movie out of something that you did 20, 30 years ago, you are either totally awesome or completely screwed. And we're wondering which one of those you're feeling.
No, I loved it. Actually, in fact, it's. I started working on this newest movie about 4 years ago with two of the original producers, Scott Mendick and Galen Walker. And we, as we developed the idea, there was only one goal in mind, is to make the best turtle movie we could. And when Michael Bay came in as producer, he hired Jonathan Liebsman as director, and Jonathan called me pretty much day two of taking over the helm, and he basically said the same thing. He said, "Look, I just want to make the best turtle movie I can. I want to make something that the fans, are going to embrace. The older fans, because those are the most hardcore and serious. But I want to make something fun for the younger fans, and also keep the humor and the martial arts. And then we get those big Michael Bay moments in there as well." So.
Hardcore and serious. I love it. It's such a basically silly concept, but there are fans who think they take it so seriously.
Yeah, no, they do. It's and it's been almost every version, every different
Iteration,
thank you. Even back in the early days when we worked on the first cartoon show, because the original comic books, were written for an older audience, basically for Pete and I. And then when we did the cartoon show, we changed the different colored bandanas. It was specifically written for, a 6 and 7 year old audience. And even, the fans of the comic book were like, "Oh, you've destroyed something great, and you've done horrible things to my beloved characters that I've loved." And it's been almost every version along the way. Even when Nickelodeon started working on the new series, the hardcore fans were just like, why are you doing in CG? Why are you doing computer? They look flat. They look stupid. You've ruined my childhood. And then they start watching the show. Go, well, they're pretty good. And I think thank goodness for the fans willing to give us room to maneuver. The same with the Jonathan Liebsman Michael Bay movie, was that they were worried that it was going to ruin their beloved characters, but the response has been pretty positive.
Take us back all the way to the beginning and tell us how this silly concept came to be, and enough for you to take it seriously and you to want to see what you could do with it.
Well, Pete and I both grew up as huge fans of Jack Kirby. He's, for anybody that doesn't know, co-created and created, most of the Marvel Universe. And that's all we ever wanted to be. The fact that we, then got to do that as a job, it's still mind-blowing to me that I've just had the greatest job on the planet for the last 30 years. So in the original version of the Turtles, I think it came from such a good place, such a happy place, and something that we wanted to write and draw and tell our stories. And the fact that it's just, been able to, make that reality possible. I'm still thinking, here we are 30 years later, still talking about turtles. It's fantastic.
What is it about it that makes it work, though?
Well, that's something we've addressed it many times. We've looked at it upside down and around and in the back and all that stuff. And I think there's so many familiar, similar concepts. We grew up fans of X-Men and Avengers. So you have superhero teams. Each superhero team has the smart one, the funny one, the Wolverine one, which is our Raphael. But oftentimes that you can see that same kind of dynamic, whether it's on the playground or in the workplace. A lot of those characters that end up finding this bond together, and I think that the turtles not being sort of race specific, they're teenage mutants. They just want to be teenagers first, but they're unfortunately mutants, and they're just trying to get by in life. And I think that a lot of kids can relate to that. I think we all grow up feeling like we're mutants.
So you took a comic which had a few thousand published, and it very, very quickly exploded into this huge thing. What was your efforts of publicity, of selling the idea to the media that made that happen?
Well, it was never done intentionally. It's almost like it happened to us as opposed to us directing it. And for the most part, especially when it started growing, it was the fans that built it, whether word of mouth or, hey, so-and-so, you have to read this. I just started to discover this new comic book. But, in the early days, the very first issue, we put out a press release. We did a couple advertisements in local trade, publications, comic book trade publications. But we were pretty sure that, we wouldn't sell one single, copy of the first issue. And, we even made furniture out of them in our studio when we got the boxes of the books back from the printer. And I think it was just word of mouth that just carried the weight and carried, the fans found it, claimed it as their own, and that was really the thing that helped it grow. And then, so I think, there's so many people that would be like, Teenage Mutant, what was their first reaction? But the fans brought it all the way here.
Did you see any of the rip-offs that appeared? I remember, I think I picked up adolescent radioactive kung fu hamsters.
Radioactive adolescent black belt hamsters. No, but that was so cool, especially in the early days, is that we felt that imitation was a form of flattery, and most of the people that were drawing comic books, especially the adjective, noun titles that we did, were people that also just wanted to live the same dream that we were living, which was writing, drawing, and telling stories. But I think we counted, at the height, I think there were about 21 different spin-offs. There were Green Gray, Gangrene Gerbils. There was mildly microwave pubescent gophers. There was Kung Fu Kangaroos. I mean, even Marvel, I don't think they ever came out with a book, but Marvel they were going to do adult thermonuclear samurai elephants. Never came out with the final comic, never made it out. But yeah, it was fantastic.
As you parlayed that into a cartoon and then toys, etc., there's a lot of traps there for a young player. Did you get trapped? Did you feel that you kept control, that you got what was your due in watching your creation grow?
Yes, definitely. I feel like we were, again, having grown up as huge fans of Jack Kirby, we knew that, characters that he created, he never had not only say in and control over, he never actually received any of the profits from the success of those characters. And so we knew how lucky we were. Again, we were inspired by up-and-coming self-publishers like Dave Sim, who is an adamant creators' rights and protection of your own character. So when we did the comic book and it became successful, by the time, say, Hollywood came along and wanted to do animated movies and movies, animated shows, movies, and the toys, we were already had lived the dream. We were getting paid to draw comic books, and these things were selling very well. So we were adamant that we wanted to have final say on every aspect. So we worked with the writers. We had final approval on the look of the characters, the use of the characters, and it was a very serious full-time job for a long time.
How many different Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle items have there been available? Have there been sold in the world since the franchise began?
It's mind-boggling, actually. And, Pete and I, for the longest time, because we never, especially in the early days, again, we never thought how long it would last or if it would even work at all when the started becoming toys and merchandising. And so we tried to save one of each item that ever came out, turtle pajamas and sneakers and the toys and all that stuff. And I think it got to be pretty big. It was just this massive collection of stuff, but it's... Do
you still have that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still have it, yep.
Do you have like a turtle room or a whole turtle house?
It's like it literally is like it's part of a warehouse complex, and I literally rent out this huge storage thing that all my turtle stuff is in there. And then my wife looks at it and goes, let's pick out some of our favorite bits. Let's keep it in storage. We can bring some favorite bits home, but not all that stuff's coming home.
Now, did you at one point sell the rights to this, sell out your interest in this?
Yeah, I went over, basically, I bought Heavy Metal Magazine and was running that, and I was working on lots of other ideas and wanted to direct movies and wanted to do some other stuff. I would move to Hollywood, and it was around 97, end of 96 into 97, the Turtles had sort of, their peak year was, I guess, 90, 91, and then there was a steady decline in, overall sales and popularity as fans went on to other things else. And there was really not that much Turtle business going on, and I wanted to go on to other things, so I sold initially creative control to Pete, so Pete had full say on all things Turtles at that time. And then a couple years later, we decided that we'd just wrap it up, and I sold the rest of my interest to Pete. And what's so freaky is, here I am 10 years later after doing that, 7 years later after doing that, I'm spending more time working on Turtles than I ever did before. The Nickelodeon series, the movie, and I'm drawing the IDW comic book. Pretty breaking news.
So are you just talent for hire in that?
Yeah. I'm just that's, and actually it
must be freeing in a way.
Oh, completely. I was just going to say that because the guys, the creative people I get to work with, even like Ciro Neely, who's pretty much spearheads the Nickelodeon show. He grew up as a kid in Philadelphia. His dad owned a pizza place. He was a huge Turtle fan, and so the guys I get to work with grew up as huge fans, and they just love the fact that we can brainstorm together and come up with stuff. And I love their creativity. I get such energy off it. And even on the new comic book series I've been working on, it's just great because I had not done that for a long time, and I realized how much I missed drawing the Turtles, how much more Turtle stories I had to say, and it's just been, welcome back with open arms, and I'm just really enjoying myself.
Heavy Metal Magazine has been, I guess, the avant-garde end of comics for quite a long time, for decades. I remember reading it in my early teens and being amazed by some of the things that were in there. What are you seeing and what are you putting into it at the moment that you're really loving?
Well, what's so great about heavy metal is I found it the same way. I found it, in 1977 when I was actually kind of growing out of comic books a little bit. They were, kind of a bit more juvenile. And then along comes Heavy Metal magazine, which showcases all these fantastic artists, mostly Europe-centric, but, eventually all over the world in the States. But it was all edgy material. And to me, that was a real eye-opening experience because I said, literally, I fully realized that any kind of story you wanted to tell for any age group, from the youngest stuff to some really heavy, edgy stuff, you can tell it with comic books, and that reignited my passion for wanting to be a cartoonist and write and draw, tell stories, and so Heavy Metal these days it's such this iconic magazine that everybody, all these up and coming artists have this aspirations to be part of heavy metal. So we get so much material sent from us. It's like, it's the easiest job I ever had. It's like, I get to, work with other artists. I get to see all this fantastic material and I basically put it together, 6 times a year.
Finally, Kevin Eastman, I always promised myself that I would ask you this if I ever met you. I've got the first couple of trade paperbacks of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I've had since I was a teenager. Are they actually tortoises?
Are they actually? Oh, man.
I think you are sprung. That is the look on your face, is sprung.
Well, it's always like, because the best way I can answer it is we just couldn't draw a turtle. What does a mutant turtle look like? And so we sort of it was a little bit sea turtle, a little bit tortoise, a little bit painter turtle, a little bit snapping turtle. We sort of did this hybrid thing. So I don't think you could ever trace their lineage back to anything. Oh no, I've seen a picture of them before they mutate. And they look like little tortoises to me. Yeah, well, the earliest ones were, like little tortoises, like little painter turtles. And then actually in the new version we did them, they were more like little sea turtles. But yes. Yeah, it's like... That's a good question, though. I love it. Has no one ever asked you that before? No, people have said, well, what kind of turtle is it? And we're like, I don't know. So the ones that were, lived in my grandmother's lake near, in Maine where we grew up. It's like, but no, pick your own favorite turtle, tortoise, sea turtle, snapping turtle. That's it.